Keith Abell here, shooting another quick blog post. Today I want to have a little bit of fun with the formula that I introduced on yesterday's call. The formula on how to create some fantastic icebreakers. Stay tuned. Okay, on yesterday's blog post, we talked about how to create a powerful icebreaker that you can introduce into conversations. We talked a little bit the day before about what you can say to your sister at a social conversation, how to bring up your business, and then of course we went into a formula on how to do that. And today I've had a lot of questions about giving some examples, so that's what I'm going to do today. We're going to have a little bit of fun with the formula that I introduced yesterday. Now, if you enjoy this blog and you get some value from it, then I encourage you to visit my blog site, especially if you found this on YouTube. Visit my blog site, aimhighwithkeith.com. aimhighwithkeith, that's Keith.com. Visit that blog site, subscribe to the feed there, and take a look around. There's a lot of great information on there I'd like to share with you. But anyhow, let's start off with, let's have a little bit of fun with this formula. Now, we're going to insert some benefits and see how it sounds. Now, the formula that I introduced yesterday is, it goes something like this. Hey, blank, I just found out how to blank. If you'd ever like to know how, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, please, blank. So today we're going to just go over a few examples of how that might work out. So first example is you're at work and you want to talk to one of your coworkers about your business. So you say to your coworker, hey Joe, I just found out how we can fire the boss and start our own business. If you ever like to know how, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, let's go take our coffee break. So what's Joe going to say? Let's go on a long coffee break. Easy, wasn't it? Now, you know this is going to work on most people at work, except for the boss, of course. They all want to have a conversation with you during the coffee break about what you're talking about there. But maybe you don't go to work. Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, for example, and your prospects are other stay-at-home moms. You could say something like this. Hey, Mary, I just found out how we can stay home with our kids and still get full-time paycheck. If you'd ever like to know more, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, let's take the children to the park for a play date. What do you think most Marys are going to say? Tell me more. I've never had a Mary say, oh, I'd rather warehouse the children in a daycare. Do you know someone who's 50 years old? You can say, hey Joe, I just found out how you can retire 5 years early at full pay. If you'd ever like to know how, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, let's go back to work. Is Joe going to let you go back to work and not tell you? No. He says, stay right here. Tell me more. Now, that won't work for someone who's 18 years old, of course. For him, you might say, hey, Joe, I just found out how we don't have to work 45 years like our parents. If you'd ever like to know how, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, go back to playing your video games. Do you watch television with a friend? You might say something like this. Hey, Mary, I just found out how we can work 3 weeks out of the month, but get paid for 4 weeks. If you ever like to know, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, let's watch the news. Or you can say it a different way, and you can say, hey, Mary, I just found out how we can take a 1-month holiday every month, and we don't even have to stay with our in-laws. If you ever like to know how, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, give me that remote control. I don't like this program. What do you think Mary's going to say? A 1-week holiday with the family once a month? Yeah, we never see each other. Great idea. Tell me more. Want to go after leaders? You're watching TV and you say, hey Mary, I just found out how we can take a 6-month holiday twice a year. Yeah, Mary's going to laugh, but then she'll say, tell me more. If you talk to commuters, you can say, hey Joe, I just found out how we never have to waste time commuting again. If you'd like to find out more, I'll be glad to share it with you. Meanwhile, let's get back on the train here and find a good seat by the window. Now, if you talk to secretaries, you could say this. Hey Mary, I just found out how secretaries can earn more pay part-time than their bosses do full-time. If you ever want to know how, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, let's go back to filing your nails. Okay, that's a bit exaggerated, but this is a good template for lots of scenarios, such as, I just found out how housewives can earn money part-time more than their husbands do full-time. I just found out how government clerks can earn more money part-time than the mayor does full-time. Just use your imagination. It's what we say that makes a difference. I hear a lot of networkers complain about university students. They say, what a bunch of lazy, useless, unmotivated, job-seeking. Oh wait, maybe it's not the university students who are at fault. Maybe it's what we said and what we did. Would you agree with me that if we said something better and did something better, at least some of them would ask us for presentation? Maybe not all, but at least more would. So, to a university student, you might say, hey Joe, I just found out how university students can earn more money part-time than their professors do full-time. If you'd ever like to know how, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, let's get back to playing that video game and drinking some beer. I think we certainly would get more university students to ask for a presentation by this simple change in the way we say. To a friend, you could say, I just found out how we could never have to go to work again. If you'd ever like to know how, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, let's go bowling. Or try this. I just found out how we can take a 5-day weekend instead of a 2-day weekend. If you'd ever like to know how, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, how's that dog doing? Or I just found out how you never have to work weekends again. If you'd ever like to know how, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, did you see that great show on television last night? Let's say that tax advantage of your business is worth about $200 each month. So you're at a party and there are 3 people standing around you, all holding their drinks. One turns to you and says, so what's new with you? And you reply, I just found out how we can get a $200 tax refund every month. If you'd like to know how, I'd be glad to tell you. Meanwhile, let's grab some snacks. Are they going to let you grab some snacks? Of course not. They're going to say, hey, if I can get it, I deserve it too. How do we get it? What do we have to do? What's that all about? The hardest part of network marketing is now over. They're asking you for a presentation. At this point, you've got following options. You can either give them a CD, give them a brochure, send them to a website, panic and say that you know nothing, but you'll have your sponsor call them, invite them to an opportunity meeting, give them a sample of your company's product, set up an appointment to talk with them tomorrow, ask them if they could be on a 3-way call with you and your sponsor, set up appointments to do 2-on-1 presentations with them and your sponsor over coffee. And if you had better skills, you could even do a 1-minute presentation yourself, or maybe do a 2-minute story to their subconscious minds. But after you master some of these skills, you could even do more. But the point is, you've got plenty of options to choose from, even if you're brand new to network marketing. Remember, the hardest part's over. They're asking you for a presentation. So you see a pattern yet? It's easy. The formula is, I just found out, plus a benefit. But you might be thinking, hey, wait a minute. These icebreakers are all about the opportunity. There's other types of ways to do this as well. What about my company's products or my services? So what we're going to do on a future post is we're going to go into how you can use this on your company's to highlight your company's products or your company's services. So until the next time, I hope you enjoyed this blog post. Invite you to subscribe. If you somewhere on this page, if you're on YouTube, there's a link to subscribe to my YouTube. If you'd like to go to my website itself, it's aimhighwithkeith.com. That's aimhighwithkeith.com. Subscribe to the blog there and you'll get the future posts automatically. Also, I encourage you that if you want to find out more about what I'm doing in my network marketing business, to please do so. It's been a fantastic year this past year. I've been able to increase my business up to the point where it's covering all my monthly bills. So it's wonderful to have that taken care of. And I'd like to encourage you to contact me. Let's find out how we can do that. I'm taking my business to the next level. I'm going to replace that pharmacist salary that I used to make. And that's my goal, is to get that replaced. I want to retire. I want to be able to travel with my family. And it's all going to happen through this business. And again, I'd like to invite you to join me in the business. To find out more about my business, go to aimhighenergy.com. That's aimhighenergy.com. Until next time, hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you subscribe. Thank you.